YouTube. And once we start the AMA here, we'll lock the chat and post all the links and everything for everyone to follow along in the main chat as well.
Okay, we'll be getting started shortly. Just waiting for Todd and Jamie from the Gamestar Plus team.
I think Jamie's already in here. Let me see if I can unmute him.
Oh yeah, I see. Hi Jamie, how's it going?
Hello, how are you? Can you hear me okay?
I can, yeah. That's great. So we've got you, Jamie, today, and Todd's joining us as well, is he? Yeah.
Yes, he is.
Awesome. If you do, just ask him to raise his hand, or if he's in here, and he'll come to the top of the list. It's just easier than scrolling. We've got 350 on the call now. Great.
Yeah, I saw that. There he is. I see he popped up. Hey, Todd, can you raise your hand?
I think I did. Can you hear me?
I can,
There you
Todd,
go.
yeah. Okay, welcome to Woke Talk, Todd and Jamie. If you're ready, I can start the recording and introduce you, and we can go into the Gamestar Plus project.
Yeah, let's do it. Thanks for having us.
Okay, thank you very much for coming. It's exciting. Welcome to the Wellcoin Talk community. I'm Glenn, your host today. Today we have joining us Gamestar Plus, Jamie and Todd, who will be speaking for the Gamestar Plus project. Gamestar is a streaming platform for interactive games, social games on demand. We'll go into that and a lot more details shortly. But first, could you introduce yourselves with your background and experience, Jamie and Todd?
Yeah, I'll let Jamie go first, and I'll pick it up from him.
Hey everyone, I'm Jamie Parker, Chief Product Officer. I've been with Gamestar for about a year now. I come from about 25 years in interactive product development, game design. Worked on several games across multiple platforms, from consoles to mobile and web and everything in between. And for the past decade or so, I've really been focused on media and entertainment, especially around emerging technology and media entertainment. Fairly recently, I was head of a new products group at Viacom, pre-Viacom CBS remerger, where I oversaw a team that was responsible for kind of looking at Viacom's streaming strategy, which led to a lot of what was done with their acquisition of Pluto TV and the launch of Paramount Plus. So really excited to be a part of the team. This is kind of a good mix of all of my passions, everything from gaming, especially in the board game world, to emerging technology, the things like Web3 and metaverse and beyond. And yeah, we're really excited about what we're doing.
Right on. Thanks, Jamie. As you guys can tell, super talented and experienced member of our team. And I'm really thankful to have the second chance in my career to be collaborating with Jamie. Our paths crossed about a decade ago when we were working on some really cool interactive, kind of precursor to this, some sort of like interactive, sort of viewing accompaniment experiences for the likes of Turner Networks and Showtime for shows like Dexter. So in any event, I'm Todd. I'm one of the 2 founders here at Gamestar Plus, and I'm also our head of all things Web3. So have a pretty big remit across the company, but yeah, my primary focus right now is where we're taking this thing with Web3, starting chiefly with our G-Star token, and then working with Jamie to continue to kind of push boundaries as far as experiential things, form factors, as we push GameStar from a Web 2 to a Web 2.5 to a truly Web 3 experience. So getting into things like the metaverse and our gameplay experiences in VR and AR. So thanks for joining us, everybody, and glad to have a chance to chat with you guys today.
Thanks very much for the introduction, Todd and Jamie. You launched GameStar Plus 3 years ago. I'm wondering why you're linking GameStar with crypto now. You've got the G-Star and a G-Bucks token there. I was wondering, what's been happening over the first 3 years with GameStar Plus, and why you're deciding to join the blockchain and crypto.
Yeah, good question, and a good point of clarity to make. So we didn't necessarily launch GameStar 3 years ago. That's when we started working on it. As you might imagine, a business with this level of ambition to really, meaningfully and permanently disrupt a huge consumer entertainment segment, that being, the card and board game, the game night industry, it's a heavy lift, right? So yeah, we spent quite a bit of time in stealth mode. Keep in mind that a good 2 years of that stealth mode also covered the once in 10 lifetimes disruption that was the COVID pandemic. So yeah, a lot of the early days were spent pouring the foundation, everything from acquiring great content licenses that populate our platform now. So the likes of Disney, Marvel, Lucas, all the great game shows like Family Feud, Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy, talent deals that include guys like Steve Harvey, Mario Lopez, also building the team, selecting technology vendors, getting distribution in place. So, in actuality, GameStar has only been a going concern to the public as far as having games and the platform available for about 6 months. We launched our first title in March of this year. That was Family Feud with Steve Harvey. We launched our second in August, which was CNET, hosted by Mario Lopez. So yeah, we're still very young in the marketplace, but yeah, a lot of that stuff was behind the scenes stealth mode stuff as we prepared to enter the market. To answer your question about blockchain, I can assure you that this was part of the vision from day one. We always knew that we wanted this whole game night platform to be powered by a virtual currency ecosystem that was tied to our own brand new blockchain currency that would give players real world tangible rewards, value, in some cases even governance opportunities. And that was on page 4 of the very crude first generation pitch deck I had for GameStar. So yeah, it's just market drivers and timing forces just kind of aligned such that we were able to spin up the G-Star Web3 side of our business essentially concurrently and day and date with our core platform. We do have 2 games out right now that do not yet have token utility built in, but for the most part, every game coming from this point out, starting with Wheel of Fortune, will have token utility built in, and then we'll also retroactively apply that obviously across our Gen 1 games. So yeah, that was always part of the vision, but yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, I see, Todd. Yeah. So can we have an introduction for the community investors with the GameStar Plus? What you're planning with the utility? There's a lot's planned, and how it sort of all gels together.
Yeah. So at the highest level, consider the G-Star ecosystem, which is inclusive of G-Star. That is a Ethereum compatible Avalanche built governance token, which already has quite a bit of investment energy, so through strategic and seed private pre-sales to industry-leading VCs and KOLs. The appetite far exceeded the supply, so we were very thankful that very savvy people in the space recognized the unique opportunity here. And this will be publicly available on some very, very large exchanges. that I can't publicly name yet, later this year as well. So think about G-Bucks. G-Bucks is our in-game currency. If any of you have played or are familiar with Fortnite, you might be familiar with V-Bucks, which is their in-game currency, right? So a pretty standard gamified element, right? Just essentially the measurement mechanism that accrues as you have more gameplay sessions, more success, and is essentially your leveling up mechanism, right? Very common in games, not necessarily unique. The unique part about our virtual currency ecosystem is that there is a direct relationship between G-Bucks, the in-game currency, and G-Star, which is our governance token that, again, already has a bunch of investment into it and will soon be a publicly traded asset as well. G-Bucks can be turned into G-Star. G-Star can be sold for fiat or traded for other blockchain currencies, or it can be staked. That gives you really unique privileges within the Gamestar environment, such as governance, such as joining little committees that can help influence the type of games and content that we make, even provide some some kind of focus grouping sort of stuff, all sorts of utility for these tokens within the platform. So really it's about the best parts of what gamification does already: points, badges, leaderboards, all of those elements that just drive a more fun, interesting, and addictive experience. The power of those elements has been proven time and time again, but really force multiplied or amplified by the fact that all of those cool features are not just limited to intrinsic gameplay components, but again, are actually giving these users and these players an opportunity to extract very tangible real world value. So we're excited about that. Our IP partners are excited about that. And from the sounds of things, the marketplace is very excited for this and ready for this to exist.
So, I mean, GameStar is going to do social games on demand with streaming platform for interactive games. That's a great idea for board games as well, definitely. I mean, they were huge in the COVID lockdowns. So many more families are using that now. So it's like a Netflix, but more on the board game side and gaming side, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a fair characterization. I mean, we don't get behind this messaging too much and outward facing communications, but early days, that was kind of the way we referred to GameStar, particularly in those first pitch meetings with investors, right, where you generally have 30 seconds for an explanation. Tell me what this is and why it exists. So Netflix for game night was always the quickest route to that sort of understanding, because that in a sentence really does articulate what we're doing. Everything from the ubiquity of distribution, hardware agnostic, any connected device, to familiarity and user experience and user interface, to really the value proposition, right? Like once we mature our content library to and through the end of this year and then early next, we'll have dozens of games on the platform, and we'll have a similar consumption model where instead of paying a la carte for all of these titles, you'll just have access to them for a small monthly fee, and you can enjoy them on all your connected devices.
Next question, actually, yeah. So it's going to be a monthly subscription model for everyone to get involved.
Eventually, yeah. So just want to be clear about that. Right now, as we're rolling out our first tranche of games, we're selling those a la carte. So Family Feud, Seen It, Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy, those will all be sold directly. What we'll do is once we have that content offering matured, such that we flick on that subscription model, all of our users who have paid a la carte for games will have that amount of money credited back to them for subscription. So let's just, to use round numbers, let's say GameStar costs $10 a month. Let's also say that you've bought $50 worth of games. You will get your first 5 months of subscribing to the platform credited back to you as a thank you for being one of our early supporters, and then also to make sure that you're receiving the highest amount of value from being a GameStar player.
I see, Todd. And the cost to onboard companies with the best board games, how's that work? Is it a revenue share with onboarded companies, and the revenue share for investors with the dual token? Would there be any profits for them, or buyback and burns? How would it work with the profits on the social games on demand platform?
Yeah, so I guess two tracks here with the IP holders. Yeah, there's simple royalty deals where obviously we pay in advance, in order to obtain the license, and then we participate, in a revenue share on money that's made against that IP. So yeah, pretty common stuff in licensed goods, whether it's traditional hardline merchandise like plush toys or T-shirts, or getting into licensing content in the linear or interactive spaces. So one point I will make is because we have a brand new form factor. I think you had alluded to it earlier. We call it SGOD, streaming social games on demand. There's no competition for our licenses, right? If we were making free to play mobile games, or if we were making console games and we wanted to go get IP from Sony and Disney and Fremantle and Viacom and Universal and Mattel and Hasbro and Spin Master, that would be very expensive just based on the simple law of supply and demand and competition. There's a lot of people that want those licenses. That drives the price up. Nobody's knocking on these companies' doors asking for streaming social games on demand rights, at least not yet. So the fact that we had a brand new category, which for these people who run these licensing departments equals found money in a brand new category, not to mention we could show that they'd be in good company, standing shoulder to shoulder with other industry stars. It made the process of acquiring content actually pretty seamless, and more importantly, super affordable relative to what it costs to license for other existing categories like free to play, console, or even cardboard. So that's kind of how it works on the NFP side. And then on the token side, for investors, obviously again there was those two mechanisms by which to get involved. The private pre-sale, which is oversubscribed and done, and then obviously anybody, will be able to participate once it's public on these big exchanges. And yeah, I mean, the way that the token economy and the whole utility works, it's a really thoughtful, frankly, macro market immune sort of relationship. Obviously, all bets are on the core platform, right? I mean, Gamestar exists to revolutionize game night, to bring the best parts of game nights, which are camaraderie, competition, cooperation, conversation, all these fun things that happen around game night, to bring them to platform scale, to accompany that with an irresistible value proposition, and to accentuate that with all these cool gamified features and rewards. But the strength of both of these things is obviously tied to the success of the adoption of that platform. There's not a real scenario where G-Star, as an independently, sort of traded volatile token, succeeds independently of Gamestar, the platform. So obviously, the more G-Bucks get earned, consumed, and burned, like that creates a natural upward pressure on the governance token, which essentially births more Gamestar or G-Bucks. So that's really the way that mechanism works. For those who are keen to dig in, we have obviously tons and tons of very granular information around the economy, the token unlocking schedule, the utility, and all of that kind of stuff. So at the end, I'll give everybody a little call to action where they can go and opt into any of that stuff as self-studies if they'd like.
And I'm just wondering how are you looking to sign up? The biggest board game companies in the space, and are you looking at long-term contracts? Because I'm thinking if this is going to blow up and be huge, you could get the likes of the big boys, Disney and Apple, trying to come into the game.
Yeah, for sure. So again, I'd point back to that earlier consideration that we have a brand new form factor, right? And we were able to do deals that were very friendly, both as far as the economics, really how much it costs to obtain that license, but more importantly, how easy it is to retain it, right? That's the big thing. It's one thing if you can hang your hat on saying, hey, we have Disney content, but if that turns into a pumpkin in a year's time, that might not be a great thing. All of our deals are multi-year, but more importantly, they have auto renewal triggers in them, meaning that those deals, what started as a 3-year pact will turn into a 6-year pact, which will turn into a 9-year pact with very modest, extraordinarily reachable levels of revenue performance, such that, I mean, they're so low that even if, in the event of some catastrophe, we were short on the royalty requirement, we could cut a small check, make up the difference, and make sure that we retained that content for the next, tranche of years. And all of our key deals are set up like that. That's the way it's set up with Sony, with Fremantle, with Viacom, et cetera, et cetera. So that is a key point. It's a good question to ask is, not just what content do you have, but how long do you have it for? And how are you immunizing yourself against the cost of having that content going up? So for the foreseeable future, on all of the core main stuff we have, we're in good shape.
Okay, awesome, Todd. And you've got the NFT powered ecosystem. I'm wondering how that's going to link in with the SGOD platform.
Yeah, so we were really deliberate for a bunch of reasons, not the least of which would be user experience, and also considering that the user's experience will largely be comprised of non-blockchain savvy folks, right? Like there's a lot of people in our orbit, that we talk to in communities like this that are excited about Gamestar, that are excited about the games, the experience, the platform, and then ultimately the token and the Web3 side. But I would submit that the total landscape of people who will play GameStar over the coming years, the population set that does not yet fully understand, if at all, Web3, blockchain, crypto, NFTs, custodial wallets, like you name it, will far eclipse the size of the market that does. And for that reason, we are being very thoughtful and elegant about how we fold in the Web3 features. And that's catching the attention of some of the strongest and most influential names in our industry. For instance, the CEO of the largest American trading platform, has told me directly on Telegram, I love this because it is IRL meets Web3. This is exactly what we need to get blockchain into the hands of normies, right? Make it familiar, make it easy, make it frictionless and unintimidating. So with that all as build up, I would just say that we have very specific actions, behaviors, and things happening off chain and on chain. Everything happening within the four walls of GameStar with G-Bucks, right? Like either exchanging fiat for them to acquire them, or accruing them through gameplay, or spending them within the platform for anything from NFTs to buying your way into a limited time multiplayer Jeopardy tournament. Obviously the applications for the allocation of a in-game currency are fairly endless. That all happens off chain, right? These are not like individual transactions happening on AVAX. So, again, to the average user, it will occur to them just like whatever the last virtual currency was that they engage with, whether it was Candy Crush or Fortnite, or maybe it was, in the 80s when they fired up Super Mario Brothers and saw those little coins accruing as they were jumping through tunnels. It's what's happening on chain is when, again, that conversion from G-Bucks to G-Star takes place, and then obviously those are blockchain transactions, and then what you do with it from that point on, right? If you turn that into fiat, if you turn it into ETH, whatever the case is. So we were very careful to make sure that we did not unnecessarily create too many blockchain transactions for a bunch of reasons. Again, for user safety, and also just economics, right? Like why pay gas fees every time somebody's getting some reward they just accrued by playing a game of Family Feud?
I mean, I'll jump in a little bit on that too. Like, I'll take it a little bit farther. I think we're very obsessive about user experience and learning from the mistakes of those and successes of those who've come before. I've spent the better part of my career focusing on reward and incentive programs, gamifying, got background in marketing and brands. If we do our job right, most of our users will onboard onto blockchain tech, engage with NFTs and things, and not necessarily even know they have or care, because it'll be such a fun and engaging experience. And it'll really be up to us to make sure that we're providing frictionless on-ramps and opportunities for them to kind of go deeper down the rabbit hole and explore that. And we want to make this kind of an exciting doorway into a whole world and technology platform that they never even really knew existed or could see it in a different light. So we're being very thoughtful and careful on how we integrate that so that we have the best chance of success.
Great, guys. And I was looking at the light paper. Gamestar Plus has retail agreements in place on physical board game units with Amazon, eBay, Walmart, Best Buy. Have you signed that up globally, or is that the North America market?
Right now, that's just NA, North America, but we will be expanding internationally. It's another, I think, key component of our license deals. They're all global. Those global deals generally have a few no-fly zones like Iran, Cuba, and North Korea, but for the most part, we can extrapolate and localize these games anywhere. We are starting with the US for a couple reasons. First of all, it's obviously better to nail product market fit before you try to scale everywhere. But second, the US is 60 to 65% of the global game market anyway. So, we could in theory never leave the US and still build a deca-billion-dollar business. So we will be expanding. We already have plans in the next year. We'll be Canada, Latin America, Asia Pacific, UK, and then we'll continue growth from there.
So what's actually on the physical board game units? Is there an advert to North America to sign up to Gamestar Plus?
So the first two titles that we have launched, Family Feud and Seen It, do have retail distribution, which was a real big plus for us. I don't know if anybody has any experience or background in consumer products or working with retailers, but suffice it to say, if you have a brand new product and you want to take that brand new product day one and get it on store shelves at Target, you've got a tough road to hoe. Like the amount of products they get pitched versus the ones that they pick up is a depressing number. But fortunately, because we had existing relationships with those buyers, we also had big brands and celebrities, and we were introducing a cool new technology, all of which makes the retailers look good. We were able to get to the front of the line. And obviously having major distribution, both e-com, online, and brick and mortar, is a huge lift when you're introducing a new product, right? That really reduces the burden on us as a company to create full awareness and conversion funnel top down. The amount of money we'd have to pay full freight for media to get the level of brand saturation awareness, to say nothing of ultimate user conversion, if we did not have retail, would have been deca millions of dollars. By our conservative calculations, having retail distribution for our first few titles saved us $30 million in media spend. So anyways, those boxes right now contain what we consider, or we call phygital gameplay, kind of a gnarly mashup of physical plus digital. So that just means that there are component parts in the box which are germane to that respective gameplay. So like in Seen It, for instance, you unpack your box, and in the box are things that facilitate Seen It. If anybody's played Seen It, a really big, fun movie and TV trivia franchise, the game is like is played on the screen. Like, obviously you play movie clips and components from different blockbuster films, and then questions are asked about the content you just watched. But then your progress is marked on a Candyland style cardboard game board that you would have out on a coffee table or out in the sofa or whatever. And you'd have your little die cast movers, kind of like Monopoly, that will march around the board and then ultimately determine the winner. So in that case, yeah, that's like kind of the hybrid of a board game, but powered by the streaming content from Gamestar. Same idea with Family Feud. We use those as Trojan horses for that aforementioned reason. Guaranteed us revenue early stage, significantly reduced the necessary burn for marketing and media, and most importantly, it gave us users, right? Which is the primary metric by which companies like ours will ultimately be valued. And not only did we get those users without paying for them, we actually got paid to get those users. So our first two titles went that way. Most of the titles from here on out will not have a phygital component. For instance, the Jeopardy game that Jamie was putting the finishing touches on, which I might say is pretty badass, that would be digital only. So that will not have a box component. That'll just be gameplay on platform, and then you'll tether a smartphone to be able to control game inputs. Will fortunately be the same way in most of the games moving forward. We will maintain a retail relationship with Target and the like. We'll just migrate from selling boxes full of game bits into doing what Fortnite does, where we sell G-Bucks gift cards near checkout in the gift card malls.
And I don't think there's anything to say that we wouldn't enter into any future retail partnerships with other publishers if and when it makes sense. But obviously, we want to steer more towards a digital first approach.
Okay, I see, guys, and you've got support from Steve Harvey from Family Feuds and Shark Tank's Damon John. I was wondering how they're interlinked with the GameStar Plus company.
Yeah, so both of them are very involved. They're not just, externally compensated celebrity spokespeople by any means. So Steve Harvey is actually one of the three, technically co-founders in this company. The three individuals that were on the cap table from the very beginning were my partner and co-founder, Shane Yeen. He's our CEO. This was kind of his brainchild. He has a rich and decades-long history in the traditional board game space, and it was always his dream to, basically do this, take his legacy business into the digital age and really, kind of shepherd that migration. So it was Shane, it was myself, and then it was, shortly thereafter, Steve Harvey. We got introduced to him from the folks at Fremantle. Fremantle is the production company that owns Family Feud. They also own Price is Right, not Deal or No Deal, but Press Your Luck. They own America's Got Talent, American Idol, tons of different game show and reality competition formats. Anyhow, once we did the deal for Family Feud, Price is Right, and all that stuff, in these environments, you got to license two things. If you want, you have to license the IP, and then if you want the talent to be a part of it too, you've got to go do a separate side deal with them. So they linked me up with the Harveys. They saw this right away, and they, in no uncertain terms, said, you can't afford us. And they were right, to be clear. Mr. Harvey's day rate to show up on set and record video and audio is pushing seven figures. So, I guess that's the luxury you get when you get to that level. Naturally, that was not in our budget, but he didn't even want our money. He said, hey, look, I see this thing, I believe in it, and even though this is at a very early stage, I want in. Basically, said, hey, I'm already essentially the face of family game night here in America. Why not make that official? Could be a brand ambassador, platform wide, not just for Family Feud. Can help get the word out, can do press, can do marketing, obviously support us on social. That was an easy sell, right? Like, we were very excited to do that deal, and we do it 10 times over. So yeah, Mr. Harvey and his team are fantastic partners. Like I said, they're cap table level with the founders, and have huge upside incentive to the whole business succeeding. So in addition to seeing Steve and Family Feud, we'll start to create some new content formats with him as well. And then, yeah, I mean, if you've been paying attention or following along Gamestar, you see that, very regularly Gamestar is on his Instagram stories. He's retweeting our tweets. He's gone on major mainstream American media to talk about Gamestar. He's been on the Today Show. He's been on E! News. So he's been fantastic.
Okay, awesome.
And then just quickly on Damon, we met Damon kind of tangentially through Steve, and he similarly is very active. He's a big investor, but he's also advising the company, and he's a guy with whom we will develop content as well. So in the future, you will likely see some game formats that star Damon. And one note about Damon is a huge board game enthusiast. Like, this guy literally travels with a custom-made, personalized Monopoly board that Hasbro directly made for him, because he likes to challenge new people that he meets to games of Monopoly. It's kind of his way to read their personality and their sensibilities. So in addition to obviously liking a lot of the business components, because he's a professional entrepreneur and investor, he's just a fan. Like, he wants this platform to exist so he can play it with his friends and family and his daughter Minka. So yeah, he's been a fantastic partner as well.
Awesome. Todd, and Damon John, with his business background, he can sort of escalate this and take it to the next level with his experience.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, every month I get basically a little dossier from his team that tells me like what major media appearances Damon's going to do, and which ones might make sense for him to fold some GameStar talking points into. And then they also ask us for what's going on here, right? Like, what big meetings do you have? Where would you like Damon to, either participate or maybe record a message for that? Or, the most useful is what's like, who do you want to meet? What door do you want to get into? So you pick up anybody to Martin to yeah, they're very proactive, and he's got a great team over there that, obviously their business is supporting the businesses they're invested in, and they do a great job.
Awesome. It's great to have them on board. It's not very often in crypto you get such big names involved in a company and a project. So can we go into the GameStar dual token model? So you've got the G-Star governance token. Will that mean investors will get voting rights on what decisions are made in the future for the ecosystem?
Oh, we might have lost him. Yeah, I can jump in on that a little. Yes,
sorry, I was on mute, but go ahead, Jamie.
No, yeah, the plan is obviously to have and allow investors to be able to stake in and have a greater, level of input into our roadmap and what we're doing. We're still working out all the details, but think of it as kind of a version of the best frequent flyer program out there on steroids, right? All kinds of different levels in which you can get involved, and depending on how much you stake and for how long, would give you various not only rewards on the platform, but also things like being able to participate in early access to content, vote on upcoming features. We have plans to do things like this where we can kind of have an inside circle of investors and people who have come early to share input and get access to us and see what we're doing before others. Todd, if you want to add any clarity to that.
No, that was perfect.
And so you've got the G-Star and the G-Bucks token. I'm wondering how it works, because you've got a treasury. What's going to happen with the profits from the treasury, and are they zero tax tokens as well?
Yeah, so we've got several sort of allocation buckets within the macro treasury. Of course, we've got the core treasury, which naturally belongs to the company, and then we've got very generous buckets too for community, for ecosystem, for the team. At the end of the day, Gamestar is a community platform. Kind of going back to the initial thesis, like the coin, all the Web3 stuff. None of this stuff matters at scale unless people really like and want to play GameStar, and a lot of people, right? Like, we are building this for the masses. So, that adoption and retention is priority 1, 2, and 3, here. And, part and parcel to that is not just talking the talk, but walking the walk. If you're building a community platform, it's a nice platitude, to say in front of investors or in marketing materials, but then how do you actually pay that off? For us, it's about being exceedingly and surprisingly generous with our community allocation, and how we can continue to circulate some of those dividends and perks back to our users, and not just in the financial aspect, but in the listening, in the governance aspect, like giving people a seat at the table. So all of those things. So the community, the ecosystem, the team, but the treasury that we own, that obviously is part of the the parent company. We haven't fully and finally sorted like how all that will work, but I will say that most folks that are invested in the GameStar orbit right now, all of our VCs, many of our angels, institutional and strategic investors, are essentially double dipping, right? Like, they've got a piece of the action of the parent company, which owns everything, like all the talent deals, all the rights deals, the distribution, the platforms, the games, but then obviously owns G-Star as well. And then those savvy Web3 investors have invested directly into the G-Star model as well. So you're kind of picking it up from both sides. But yeah, I mean, that's going to be a nice additional instrument of leverage for us as we continue down the path, right? I mean, we will have the ability to create and throw off revenue and yields from this token, which we can continue to reinvest into the company for its core purpose of making great games and getting more people to play, enjoy, and use those great games. And in theory, since we have the adjacent wholly owned vehicle of the token with the ability to throw off operational revenue, that would, in theory, potentially lighten our reliance on continuing rounds of external investor capital, which would obviously be very good for everybody involved in the business now. So, kind of long answer to a short question, but we're also obviously being very thoughtful about gathering multi-regional legal opinions on all of this stuff, because obviously this is a fastly developing, emerging space, and in many cases, the legislation and the regulation is kind of not even congealed yet in many cases. So, because of the big brands, because of the celebrities, we are being ultra cautious about all of that stuff, and we'll also be very transparent about it.
See, Todd, and what sort of stage are we at for investors to get involved with the Gamestar Plus? Is it IDO? Is it pre-sale? How can we get involved and invest?
So right now is a pre-sale, which is oversubscribed, as I understand it. To be clear, I am not independently managing the fundraising side of G-Star. We've got a fantastic partner on that called the Faculty Group, who has really just been a turnkey concierge for us into Web3. I can't recommend or really compliment them enough. Everything from developing what this token is, why it exists, its utility, its economics, its market making, the fundraising, connections with KOLs like yourself, introductions into massively influential communities that are essentially leading the space, like being able to communicate with and have opportunities to do business with the likes of Binance and Coinbase and Avalanche and Polygon, like all these people. They've been fantastic. So while this might sound like a commercial for the Faculty Group, I guess the point I'm making is the status of that strategic private pre-sale. I believe it's done and it's oversubscribed, but that's something I could, anybody who wants to can follow up on that. But the IDO, when we generate our token later this year, that is the best way for individuals to get involved. So what I would recommend, anybody on this call, if you're keen to learn more, please head over to blockchain.gamestarplus.com. And on that landing page, you'll have a couple of key assets right at the top header. There's the light paper, which Glenn referenced a little bit earlier, which is really the definitive all-in-one document about everything: who, what, why, when, where, G-Star. And then for those interested in getting involved in the IDO, there's the early KYC process, where we'll take you through a secure, quick process just to kind of check the boxes on regulation and compliance for KYC. And then you will be on a wait list, and then you will be the first to have access when this IDO takes place later this year.
Yeah, we've got the socials in the main chat there. I think you're mainly on Discord. You're not on Telegram as much. I think
we do have a pretty active community here on TG. The one on Discord is also pretty vibrant, and then Twitter is a great one as well. So I'd say check out all of those. Those are all kind of the most, I'd say, Web3 focused channels. The very traditional channels like IG and Facebook tend to be very just consumer, right? Where we're just talking about games platform. We're not getting into anything in the weeds as far as ICOs and AMAs or quite yet. Just because obviously we want to talk to people where they are, and this is where our Web3 folks are.
Okay, awesome, Todd. And with the marketing, what's planned before launch, after launch, and what's the sort of timeline for the two tokens to launch?
Well, to be clear, it's not really a dual token model. It's kind of a hybrid. There's really only one, right? There's the G-Star token. G-Buck, as some folks at Faculty like to say, is a lowercase t token. It is not, an asset, an instrument, or anything that other than a virtual currency mechanism. And then obviously there's that relationship between the two. But we're doing a lot of marketing. Again, there's some deals in place that I would absolutely love to, but I cannot yet publicly talk about, from the types of launch pads that are kingmakers for ICOs that obviously with their community, their ecosystem, their reach, and just the straight MAUs they have can really almost independently blow up tokens at launch. So obviously we'll be leaning very heavily on those great strategic partners, but then also, continuing to do a lot of what we're doing here, like grassroots community outreach, AMAs, and then we'll step that up with a pretty aggressive media spend once we're, about 45 days out from the IDO, and we'll communicate that as soon as it's locked in. Obviously, macro market conditions are the primary driver of selecting exactly when that happens, and that's anybody's anybody's guess is as good as the others on that. But we all feel pretty bullish that we're going to be able to drop it into obviously not the best ever, but still a fertile and stable and correcting market sometime in Q4.
Great, Todd. And there's the plans to go to central exchanges as well in the future for the tokens.
I believe so. Yeah. Nothing set in stone. Yeah, but I think the 3 and 5 year outlook for where this all goes has some interesting components like that being considered.
Okay, great. So let's open it up to community investors. Let's see, Sayad, you had a question for the Gamestar Plus team. Todd or Jamie here. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Glenn. I have a few questions. So I've been listening in, and I was just wondering, do you have any plan on collaborating with a streaming platform like Netflix, Amazon, or Hulu to have a GameStar Plus board game section on this streaming platform? This will allow you to reach a massive audience, and it will also make easier for these users to have access to your platform.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And my answer to that is maybe, just because obviously there's a lot of complexities in doing a deal like that, to say nothing of the fact that it would be a first of its kind sort of collaboration. If you'll notice the trend right now in linear streaming, obviously we have interactive streaming, but linear, where you just kind of press play on a title and then lean back, is all becoming very walled, right? Netflix was the first to market and the category king. And the thing that made them so appealing is they had everything, right? They had Disney stuff, they had The Office, they had, blockbuster first run films. It really was the one-stop shop for pretty much all the best stuff in streaming. Then other competitors started creeping up, Hulu, which was, online before Netflix started gaining market share, started getting more content from their partners like CBS, Fox, Disney. And then everybody else, speaking to the earlier comment from Glenn, content deals, right? They expire. And those content deals clearly didn't work the way ours do, where they can essentially perpetually renew. So, as these content deals started to expire, the original owners of those did not renew them. So The Office took it back from Netflix. Parks and Rec took it back from Netflix. All the Disney stuff is off Netflix now. And that trend continued because all of these streamers now want to own all of their distribution. So, and it's all just essentially the streaming output of these major media conglomerates, right? So anything in the Disney orbit, which is, Disney, Marvel, Pixar, ESPN, Hulu, ABC, that's all, in their little trio of streamers, ESPN Plus, Hulu, and Disney Plus. Obviously Comcast done the same thing with Peacock, Viacom Paramount with Paramount Plus, et cetera, et cetera. So, A, there's just not a lot of content sharing going on right now. And B, we really haven't initiated those talks. I will say that while that's a good idea in theory, what I think our more, realistic expectation is not necessarily that we would throw our content on their platforms, but that they would be the most suitable potential acquisition partners, right? Because right now they're all fighting this very expensive war of attrition in these streaming wars. And really the only way to get ahead is to spend the most, which is a losing battle, right? And what folks haven't figured out yet is a way to meaningfully at scale remonetize their customers, right? If you can get your subscribers into paying, anywhere from 15 to 22 bucks a month, that's great, but then it's like, what else? GameStar could be the most effective, interesting, and value-laden upsell in the history of streaming, right? Imagine if Disney Plus bought GameStar. quick note, our backends are so compatible that an enterprise engineering team could have a GameStar platform fully adapted to any of these streamers in inside of 4 weeks. That was an intentional decision from the very beginning about how we architected and engineered this thing. Imagine Netflix sometime in the future, or Disney Plus, major marketing push. Hey, as we continue to become the de facto source of family delight and entertainment, we're pleased to say we now have GameStar, and for an extra $6 a month, you have access to this huge library of AAA interactive games that are also powered by this reward system, the G-Bucks. And anybody who wants to raise their hand and get that, it's only $4 extra a month, or $5 a month. If 20% of their subscribers, 10% of their subscribers said yes to that, that puts another couple $2 billion on their balance sheet right away. And obviously that would be reflected ideally in our acquisition price. So that's what I think is the most likely scenario, that ultimately one of those big ones buys us, rather than us renting space on there, if that makes sense.
I think that's it's a great question and a great point. I think there's another way of looking at this too, in that, you have kind of the content platform walled gardens, the Disney Pluses, the Apple TV Pluses, Paramount Pluses, all the pluses. And then you have the distribution platforms, the mechanisms to get into homes. The obvious kingmaker right now, most dominant player, at least here in North America, is Roku. There's a reason why Apple has finally given up trying to keep everything on their hardware and is making Apple TV Plus app for Roku now, for smart TVs, even for Android, So I think for us, we obviously want to be everywhere we can be. And I think, another interesting angle here is ensuring that, while we may not necessarily be looking at integrating into other kind of content platforms right now, we're definitely going to be working really hard to make sure that we can get in on and into as many homes as possible. And not just homes either. We're also looking at emerging platforms as well. There's lots of stuff coming up when we think about things like metaverse and other platforms.
And VR. Out there. Yeah, there's a good chance that even as soon as this year, you guys could see a major partnership announcement between GameStar and one of the largest luxury automakers in the world. That's kind of blazing a trail into virtual reality, metaverse, passenger entertainment. So great point. But good distinction between sort of platform level points of entry and then actual think about Roku, Samsung connected TVs, Apple TVs, Fire TVs, Android TVs. These are all like marketplaces and ecosystems, and that's where GameStar will be found, right? Every one of those things. So if it's an app ecosystem where you can download Netflix, Disney Plus, Hulu, or Peacock, you'll also be able to download GameStar. So again, that ubiquity of distribution that mirrors those other big giants, but it'll in almost all likelihood look more like that. Again, standing shoulder to shoulder. Then, you would have to go into Netflix in order to get GameStar. Again, I think that's a privilege they'll have to pay us for.
It makes sense, and thank you so much for explaining that very nicely. Thank you so much. Over to you, Glenn.
Thanks for the question. I appreciate it.
Question, Syed.
Thank you.
Sort of brought up another question for me. You're covering so many age demographics, from children to 5-year-old to 60. So whole families sort of on the platform. Are you looking to advertise to different age groups for different types of things like gaming and anything else?
Oh, 100%. And we've got some really sharp people who've just joined our organization who I am welcoming in with open arms as we grow and scale our team. And I can start to hand off, a lot of the hats that I was wearing that, are required of founders in the early days, as I kind of masqueraded as, CEO, COO, CFO, CMO, and starting to give those hats to people who rightfully should own them. The one I'm really excited about that we just brought in is our CMO. Her name's Farrell. She used to be the CMO at Tinder, and has also been in senior marketing roles at places like Stars Network and Nike. So she gets everything in our orbit, from growing and scaling app-based businesses to user acquisition, retention, churn. She also gets brand, she gets entertainment, and she's a really big performance marketer. So, to that point in question, yeah, in today's day and age, marketers have the luxury of saying very specific things to very specific people. We don't just have to rely on one TV commercial, trying to figure out a way to bend that such that it appeals to everybody who might see it. So yes, we will be segmenting and narrowcasting to different demographics, everything from family gamers to adult gamers to people who play with kids and everything in between, as well as getting into the fandoms of all these different IPs, right? Getting into the Family Feud circles, the Wheel of Fortune, the Jeopardies, the Catans, like, you name it. So.
On top, let's go back to community investor questions. Let's see, Western Beast, you had a question for Gamestar Plus for Todd or Jamie here. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Glenn. It's a great project, guys, especially the fact that you're actually dealing with IoT. But the first question I actually have is that I saw on your white paper that you've targeted based on the statistics and the marketing data you've accumulated that there are 44 million plus smart TVs in the US alone. That's excluding other developed countries. And aside from this and developed countries, do you have plans for developing countries that actually have a fraction of the scale of the smart TVs and IoT connected devices that these developed countries have? Are there any plans for them?
Yes, but candidly, I would say they're early stage. I'd kind of just point back to my earlier comment about kind of focus and establishing the brand, the product market fit, the whole identity of what GameStar is and why it exists and why it's viable in a controllable space. And again, our controllable space happens to be 60 to 65% of the global market, so it is quite sizable and quite competitive. But yeah, I mean, again, candidly, like the focus is obviously at this stage of life, and we're plus or minus 6 months old, to really nail the fundamentals before we think too far down the line. But I can say that global expansion has always been in the plans, both developed and undeveloped countries. I know that my co-founder, for one, is quite bullish on being that point of entry to casual, social, fun gaming, particularly with play and earn sort of components into these developing places where the populations and the appetite are both so huge, but I guess the availability of good stuff is not. So yeah, it's not something we have the luxury of being able to focus on right now, but I would say that'll be in the forefront of ours, in the next 24 months for sure, if not sooner. But that's kind of how I would characterize it right now.
All right, all right. Basically, IoT is actually, will I call it a recent technology, even if it has been considered a few years ago. One of the things I wanted asking, quite a technical question, but I wanted to talk about the TV game shows. I'm pretty sure there are going to be winners, and those winners will be based on the fastest buzzers. I actually saw on whiteboard there will be something like the fastest buzzers. These games will actually require a very fast working internet system that may probably be available in most countries. And will there be a bandwidth limit so that disconnected devices must meet before they are allowed to participate in these games?
No, actually. So one thing that we're really focused on right now is creating, experiences for people to play with their friends and families in their homes. So the beauty of what we're designing is that, it's not necessarily dependent on, the speed of the broadband in your area, but your ability to kind of pair devices locally. So you'll be able to bring your friends and families over to your home, connect into our platform with your mobile devices, play a game, and win rewards just like anybody without the need of having to have super broadband experiences. So, yeah, no, I think our goal is obviously, is always going to be to create fun and engaging experience with as little friction as possible to get people on and playing as quickly as possible.
All right, I get it. My final question will be on, data management and data security management. But I think I'll be asking that question in your Telegram group. I'm really wishing you guys the best, and I hope the project stays bullish moonward. Over to you, Glenn.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that question. And then just one thing I wanted to mention, Glenn, I do have a hard out in about 2 minutes. So yeah, if we have one more question, I'm happy to field it, but I will have to jump to my my next meeting.
Okay, but you did have a CTA to do at the end. Do you want to do that now, or shall I take one more question and then you can do that? Or
yeah, I think I kind of got to it earlier, but just to kind of reiterate, yeah, certainly join us on social media. So I think those are all posted here. Again, our Twitter, our Discord, and our TG are going to be the most active in the Web3 space. But then, we've got a nice growing community on Instagram as well. And those are all just kind of, domain like, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, / Gamestar Plus. And then go to blockchain.gamestarplus.com for all the information you'll need about the token, as well as, getting on the path to getting KYC to be the first to have access to it. So yeah, that's the CTA. And then yeah, let's take one more question.
Awesome. Let's see, Venish, you had a question for Gamestar Plus for Todd or Jamie. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Glenn. Okay, I was thinking that will you guys be partnering up with any advertising agencies or advertise the products to the right target audience, because you have games for almost every kind of age group that makes it easier for reaching out to the right audience during those games.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I mean, our network of partners and supporters will include great agencies across the board, everything from brand and marketing and media to social media to publicity, and they're all under the very careful care of Farrell, my aforementioned CMO. But one other thing I'll bring up, because you said ad agencies, although this is taking it in a different direction. This is not a day one thing, obviously. As I mentioned, we got to focus, we got to build users, we got to build community, and we got to build a great product. But I fully expect that we will do that, and we've got the team to get there. One thing that we will likely do, which you're seeing people like Netflix and Disney adopt finally now, is an ad-supported tier, right? Where it's like, hey, maybe the full-fledged premium product is $10 a month, but why close your doors to people who can't or won't pay that? Maybe you give it to them for $3 a month, and they just have to watch targeted ads. The lifetime value of customers who are paying you a smaller amount in cash, but are bringing in advertising revenue can sometimes actually exceed the lifetime value of people who are just paying you a higher monthly fee. So a slightly different take on that question, but that's another revenue stream that I expect will open up in the next 24 months as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for answering it.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, thanks, Glenn. I appreciate you so much, man. This has been a lot of fun, and we've done a ton of AMAs so far, and I think this is our biggest.
Awesome, Todd and Jamie. It's been great having you. It's a huge project for our community investors to hear about, and you're first to market with social games on demand. So that's always super exciting for our investors. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the future for the Gamestar Plus. As we say, welcome to us for educational research purposes. It's not financial advice, but you can check out the website, the white paper, and the official socials are in our main chat. Because I see there's quite a few hands still up. So if you want to head over to the Telegram or the Discord, I'm sure there'll be someone in the team that can answer your questions after the AMA. And thank you very much for coming, guys.
Thanks so much, guys. I appreciate the time and the support. I really do. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Okay, take care. And I think we've got spin the wheel for 2 lucky winners, $100 each, $50 each, should I say, $100 in total.
Yep. I got the wheel up here, Glenn, and I'm spinning it. You can see the wheel, right? There we go. Our first winner. Let me shuffle it one more time. Get our second winner here, and I'll get your IDs and we'll DM you for your wallets, guys, and we'll send over the prize. So, sorry.
Okay, thanks for everyone coming. I'll finish the record and send over a copy for Gamestar Plus to share in our community, and I'll send that into our main chat as well for any investors that couldn't join the call today.